Welcome everyone, today we have a new guide for Tower Fantasy, and in this video we'll be looking at the latest wormhole of how to get as much resources as you can very quickly as free to play. Notice over here I've gotten to 2/4 and I'll show you guys the quickest method of doing this, and we'll talk about how to get even further in this method. And one of the highest damage I was able to achieve was like 3 million against the boss. So what I want to show you guys is there are multiple new tricks, new tips I discovered as I play the wormhole on harder difficulties, and I want to show you guys how to kill enemies instantly with the trick of knocking them off the cliff. This is actually really useful with the high level challenges because I can consistently kill them much faster. You knock them off the cliff and you kill them instantly. And I'll show you guys additional tricks of knocking them off the cliff again. So yeah, multiple ways to knock them off the cliff. And I can do this consistently. And after that, I'll show you guys multiple ways of getting more buffs than you're supposed to do. So here you can see I'm collecting a bunch of monsters and I can get up to 4 buffs by killing them instead of just getting one of the buffs. Because once you kill them at the correct method, you get multiple buffs. And this is one of the previous discoveries, but this will help you along the way to deal massive damage. I'll also show you guys what are the best buffs to pick for the highest damage as well. After that, we also have another tip I have for you guys for the harder difficulties is to infinitely kite the monsters and keep your distance. So what I'm doing is I'm using the Nemesis slow pulse after dashing and also attacking, which creates a slow pulse. And this with a certain buff in the game that provides you with stamina after you dash can almost instant kite any of the monsters. Notice here I'm creating a slow zone non-stop and the monsters are pretty much stuck in there. And this will help you along the way for harder difficulties and killing monsters without losing too much HP. And finally, I do want to show you guys a method of passing the levels and killing monsters. So notice over here, and what I'll show you guys is, I'll show you guys this quick clip. Notice over here I have 99%. So instead of killing the elites, I'm going to aggro the elites, do damage to them, then I'll kill a normal monster to kill the elite. So once you get to 100, everything you touch will die. So notice here, this is a very good trick of fastening your pace. So I kill the little monster to kill the 2 elite that is next to me, and this will quicken your pace of the game, get more buffs, and also kill monsters much faster in any of the levels. Now, because there are multiple layers in passing the wormhole, what I want to do is I want to break this video in a few parts. You saw the preview of the tips, and what I'll do is I'll quickly show you my free-to-play setup, and also what are the weapons using, what are my choices, and then I'll show you guys the mindset. Then I'll show you guys all the tricks, and after that I'll show you guys a bit of tips in fighting bosses and doing the challenge mode and doing the harder difficulties, because there are 3 things you want to know with those difficulties to fasten your pace in getting more rewards each of the week in the wormhole. Now, if you guys haven't seen our last free-to-play wormhole clear video, I definitely recommend having a look, because I have some critical tips about getting more buffs and also healing yourself, and also other tricks in the particular build. So make sure you have a look at this. So this video, I assume you have seen that previous video, but I'll give you a brief summary of what that video is about as well, some of the critical tips. So make sure you also have a look at this previous video before you start this video, because that's when I first started to do the free-to-play style, and it was actually very good. Now, I really wanted to make this video quickly for you guys because currently the reset is about 15 hours during the recording of this video, maybe even less. So if you haven't seen this guide and tips, definitely try those out. This will help you to get faster rewards, and the golden crystals will be recycled every week, and I think it's actually every 5 days. So if you do this correctly, you get a lot more than what you usually get, especially for free to play or low spending players. I'll show you guys my weapons. So I rerolled for Nemesis. I got my second Nemesis, the 1-star Nemesis, after 110. So I bought the Nemesis from the Flame Gold for the second copy. I did get the copies of Samir because just by rolling for SSRs, and I was quite lucky. I got 2 copies of the Crow, and then I used my SSR selection ticket, and also I used my dark gold or black gold to buy more copies of the Crow. Or the, not the Crow, the King, right? So I bought more copies of the King Scythe over here because I like the attribute set on the 3rd star that gain increased 30% damage for having enemies nearby. You can still pass by ground without having those gears, and I'll show you the tricks, because a lot of the tricks you don't have to deal damage. You push them off the cliff, you kill them, and you get more buffs. And once you pick the correct buffs, you will be unstoppable just having the right element of the weapons. Now, as for the choice of the character special passives, I did pick King over here. In case you guys didn't know, the King passive will provide you with 10% HP gain for every 5 enemy killed. And I haven't got to that yet, so I'm currently at the 7 enemy killed for 8% HP gain. I actually maxed out my Nemesis over here for the maximum 4000 gift. So I'm still maxing my King, and I'm a little slow, but I'm using the King for the running of the Wormhole for the HP region. Now, of course, you don't have to use the weapons I'm using. As long as you have one correct elemental weapon, which I'm using a flame weapon over here, you can also use the weapon which is supposed to be really powerful with Meryl, which I haven't gotten one. So the ice weapon is also very powerful, especially with her level 1 shatter that gains 10% HP for shattering, incredibly good for healing. So instead of using the King, you can use Meryl as well. But I have found ways to use the King, the scythe, to push enemies off the cliff, which becomes very powerful if you do this correct. So now let's come over to some of the new tips I want to share with you guys. The first tip is about how to push enemies off the cliff. And you can see here, using the King and his scythe, I can push enemies off the cliff quite consistently. So this is one of the demonstrations. After you push them off the cliff, they will die instantly. Make sure you use your jetpack to glide down to grab your buffs. And you have to grab quickly, otherwise it'll teleport you somewhere else, right? So I'll show you guys another example over here. So the monster is located over here, and I found this to be the most consistent trick to kill enemies faster and get more time out of it. You will lose some HP if you fall down, but the HP is, minimum, right? So the goal is to break the enemy shield. Once you break the enemy shield, you can then use the flying charge attack from the King to keep pushing the enemy with the spins. So I'll try to break the enemy shield, and it takes a little longer. So now, I'll show you guys the whole thing. So here I'm trying to break the enemy shield. And once you break the enemy shield, you want to position yourself ready to push the enemies off. And then you jump upwards and use the flying attack of the King and start spinning on him. And there you go. It's quite straightforward, and this actually works multiple times with the right weapon. I haven't tried other weapons to see if I can push enemies off the cliff, because my flame weapon was my base weapon to deal the most damage. But the first thing is you break the shield, and then you get enemy airborne, and you start to use the flying attacks, and this will actually knock them off the field very consistently, and this kills them super fast. Just make sure you go and grab those particular buffs, because those will be very handy. Now, in order to clear the monsters faster, one of the critical things I have noticed, I'm sure you guys might have noticed, is that if you have damaged monsters while you're pretty high on the percentage, and if you get to 100%, all the monsters that you have damaged and is in combat with you will die instantly. And this is one of the better tricks of killing monsters who are high level. So over here you can see I'm fighting level 56 monsters for difficulties, and the monsters were quite hard to kill, and I'm almost out of time. So the goal is I was able to kill enough of the little monsters to get to 99%. Then I will be aggroing as many of the elite monsters as I can, and then I'll go kill the last little monster. This way I'll get about 2% for killing this monster, but everything else I aggroed will also die. So this is a very critical trick that I've been using throughout the game, and this will fasten your pace. So for the harder elite monsters, you push them off the cliff. But for the few remaining ones, you can kill the lower monsters to get close to about 99% or 98%. Don't go too close though, because you do want to get your percentage right. So maybe 97, 98%, and get a bunch of the little monsters, and then you just aggro them and kill them. So here I'll just show you guys again. So here notice I'm aggroing all the elite monsters, and I'll kill the little one. And this will instantly kill all the elites to give you the buff. I'll show you guys again the example over here. So over here you can see I'm at 97% or 98%, and I'll show you guys a little bit over here. So 95%, and I have aggroed as many elites as I can. My goal is not to kill the elite, but my goal is to kill the normal monsters that are that are easier to be killed. Once I get to 100%, everything else will die, and this will allow me to kill elite monsters much faster than I'm supposed to. And it's easier to kill the normal monsters, and you get some HP back, and this way you get your buffs. You get a lot more buffs than usual. So now that we know that we can kill monsters by just getting to 100%, the next bigger tip is actually coming from the previous video as well, is that you want to group as many as the big elite monsters as you can, and then you want to get to 100% and then kill them this way. So here I have grouped at least 4 of the elite monsters. I know each elite will give me about 25% of the progress. So by killing 2 of them, everybody else will die. And this is one of the best ways to get multiple buffs, because if you don't aggro enough monsters, what's going to happen is, the moment you get to 100%, everything else will die, so you can't get additional buffs. And using this method, I was consistently getting 3 or 4 buffs than normal on each of the stages. So notice here I have a bunch of buffs. So there's 1 buff here, 1 buff here, 1 buff here. So I got 4 buffs by killing those 4 stack. And this is very good once you get your progress over 75%. So once you get progress over 75%, you go aggro as many elites as you can, then you kill them. Just by killing one of them, everything else will die. And this is so beneficial to get more buffs and also more power-ups in the game for the later stage. And over here, I'll show you guys another example of getting multiple buffs. So here, notice I'm aggroing 2 of the monsters, and there's 1 more over here. And I basically mapped the map out. I'll give you guys a little guide of me mapping the map, which is very useful. So here I have collected about 4 elites. And by killing them, I can get multiple buffs again. So I can at least 4 buffs. So I remember there was 1 more here. So I map as many elites as I can. I aggro all of them. And just by killing one of them, just by killing one of the elites, the other 3 will die. And this gives me tremendous more advantage as a free-to-play player to get more buffs and also more damage. And make sure you get the right buffs and get the right power-ups, because this will help you to do massive damage in the later stage of the game. Because I'm getting consistently 2 or 3 buffs more than players who doesn't do this method. Now I know some of you might be wondering, hey, how do you get so many elites on one map? Well, there is a trick I want to show you guys. And I can't really show you here, but because I was doing a lot of recording now, so I will just tell you how it works. So notice that here I have so many elites that stack in one place. Maps are randomized, and if I go into a map that I don't get this many elites that is stacked over here, what I do is I just tend to restart the map. I exit the map and I restart the map again, and usually the map gets randomized again. I try to hunt for a map that have this particular stacking system, and once I find a preferable map, then I do the map. So I don't just do any of the maps. For each of the levels, I try to do the right maps for the highest power-ups to get stronger and as stronger as I go. Because as free-to-play and also low spending players, you want to get as many power-ups, and also you want to kind of find the maps that is working for you with at least 3 or 4 stacks of the elite monsters for more buffs. Now that we talk about most of the tricks and also tips, I'll give you guys some brief, clear advices and also tips on each of the stages. So here we're looking at the normal stage. Normal stage are pretty straightforward. You don't really have to stack as many buffs. It's more useful for the harder and also challenge stages. So with the normal stage, if you use all the tricks, check out the side, it's actually pretty easy. So now, if you guys have not seen the previous video, in that video, I do have a full detail of how I map the map out. So I run around, I look for stuff, and also how I found the bosses, how I map the map out. It's very important to get more buffs and also more ways. I won't cover this here because we already talked about last video. So first you scout around, you get as many time buffs and also other buffs as you can. And then you look for the location of the monsters and you kill the group and also stack of monsters last. So you actually scout a lot. So I talked about that in a previous video, but the key is, remember this time, if you map the map out and you don't like the map, you can restart the map. So you exit the map, then you come back in to get a new zone with monsters that you preferable. So remember this, you don't have to do the map that you get on the first go. You can restart the map. Now for the normal challenge, it is quite straightforward. If you follow this method and trick for the level 4 and also level 8 bosses, which is Lucia, I don't think she is a challenge to, and you'll be dealing a lot of damage. So notice here with some random buffs and also some quick clears, I was able to clear the normal difficulty very easily. And this will give you the first 8 clears for this particular challenge. Now coming over to the hard mode difficulty. The hard mode difficulty is actually not that bad once you get through the first stage. As for the first stage, my goal is to knock enemies off the cliff and also to kill multiple stacks of the elites to get multiple buffs, especially at the first 3 levels. Because once you stack enough buffs, you won't have a problem even for level 4 boss. So I didn't find that much difficulty in the hard mode as long as you keep restarting the map if you don't get a good map. So what I'll do is I'll quickly skip over here. So for most of the phases for the hard difficulty this time, I was able to knock enemies off the cliff and kill them quite fast. Notice at the level 7 rank, I was doing so much damage simply because I got so many buffs than usual. And I'll just show you guys over here. I think I did over close to 1 million and plus damage right in one sweep, and I was doing so much damage with the buffs. I'll show you guys the buffs I picked in as well. So what we're going to do is we'll quickly have a look at the boss that we'll be fighting for the harder difficulty. So before we do that, let me see if I can show you guys the buffs. So the buffs I was having to fight the harder difficulty boss, I'll show you guys the buffs right over here. and I'll show you guys the buffs that I prefer to be picking. So this is for the harder difficulty, and we'll talk about the challenge difficulty after. So here I'm going for critical rate and also final critical rate for the higher critical chances and damage. And then I'm using a flame weapon, so I get as much flame weapon damage as I can. They have explosive properties, and they also have a massive attack stack on the enemy. So 1200% of the additional attack is actually very powerful. I'm also going for this particular buff, and actually this is something I did want to share with you guys. So this is the buff that provides you with recover rate, which is like the stamina recover for dodges. Each time you dodge, you'll gain recover rate. And this was actually one of the things that was actually super useful for me to kite enemies multiple times in the challenge difficulty. I'll show you guys that very soon. So let's just come to the hard boss quickly. Now the hard, I'll just show you guys the rest of my buffs. So everything that is attack, I'll be getting as much attack as I can. I did get some random buffs, vault damage, but make sure you guys don't get the buffs you don't need, like physical damage, other vault damage if you're not going for those damage. Get frost damage if you're going with Marrow, get flame damage if you're going with King or anyone that is flame. So make sure you get the right elemental damage this time, and this will go a long way. Now, finding the boss is actually quite straightforward. I think there was something that was quite interesting to me. I wasn't sure what was happening. I'll show you guys over here. So here I did like 1 million plus damage, and I got instantly reflected to death. I'm not sure if there's a mechanic with this boss that he reflects, but just be a little careful. So after getting instantly reflected to death in one shot, I was like, what? Yeah, I did like a third of boss's HP, but it instantly killed me. But to be honest, both bosses for level 4 and also level 8 is very easy, simply because that if you shatter them on the right timing before they go to maximum, you can then mount onto them. And make sure you mount onto the harder bosses, so once you press F and mount onto them, you will do tremendous damage to them, and this is pretty much free damage. So always do this, shatter them and then mount onto them. They're not very difficult, and you should be able to clear hard very easily with those tricks. Now coming over to the challenge difficulty for the game, and this, oh boy, it's very hard. So you'll be doing multiple tricks. You'll be knocking enemies off the cliff, you'll use the little monsters to kill the big monsters by getting to 100%, and also you'll try to watch for your HP. Now one thing I did notice that will help you greatly in the challenge difficulty is to reduce amount of HP loss. So let's come back in the game. I'll quickly show you guys one of the tricks with Nemesis in case you guys are not aware of this. And what you do is when you dash with Nemesis, dash backwards, you can dash then attack, and this will shoot a projectile, and this projectile will actually create a time slow zone. Now the downside of doing this is that you will run out of charges of dashing, right? But in the Wormhole, there is a particular buff that you can kind of get more regenerations of your dash charges by doing this. So this is the particular buff I was talking about. So each time you dodge, it will increase dodge recovery. And by having this particular buff, I was able to dodge and spam the slow bullet with Nemesis, and this will slow down the enemy. So coming over to this particular replay, I'll show you guys for the challenge mode. So here I try to get at least 2 elites, and I'll use the spams once I have the buff. And notice that my dodge recovery is actually regenerating a lot. And this allows me to almost permanently slow them with the slow zone. So if you haven't tried this on Nemesis, definitely give it a try. If you have tried this, make sure you get the buff in the harder difficulties, because you can pretty much kite enemies non-stop. Notice I'm creating like 3 slow zones and they can't get to me. And this way you don't have to lose much HP, you can pick more offensive buffs and deal with enemies with higher damage. Now one thing I do want to highlight with the challenge difficulty is that it is very much harder for the free-to-play and also low-spending players, because you'll run out of time. I found out that once I have enough HP, I have enough damage, I actually still run out of time. And because my damage is still quite low, right? So one way of clearing this without running out of time, you notice I'm trying a lot on each of the difficulties, is actually to kill the little monsters. This way, my goal is to no longer get as much buffs as I can, but to push for as high level as I can. And this will get you to at least to the level 4 stage, and you'll get additional rewards for clearing the first 3 levels. So what I'm doing here is, I'll be killing as many small monsters as I can see to get close to 100%. And once I get close to 100%, so I'll try to show you guys. I think it actually took me so long to kill them, right? And I think I even failed here. So here I'll show you guys over here. So here I'm killing as many small monsters as I can to get close to 100%. And then I will group as many elites as I can and kill them together this way. So I'm using the small monsters to get 100% and instant killing the elites. Now I'll show you guys a little bit over here. Notice I'm 95% over here, and I'm hitting the little monsters, I'm hitting the elites. I'm trying to group as many up as I can, and the moment they get to 100%, I'll kill all of them to get the buffs. So this was the fastest way of me clearing for the challenge difficulty. It is not easy, I know guys, but this is, one of the best way of clearing them. And I found out, if you don't do methods like this, you'll run out of time, and then you take a lot of damage, you can't pass the levels. And using this method, I was able to clear more rounds in the challenge mode. And I'll just show you guys over here. So my combat score is only 20,000, and I think I was able to, let me show you guys over here. I was able to clear as high as to the level 4, up to the level 4 stage, because I didn't get enough proper buffs. I was just fast clearing from 1, 2, and 3. But if I get the proper buffs, I might have a chance for level 4, but I don't think I need to, because if you look at level 4 combat score, the recommended level is like 40,000 of the CS, right? I'm pretty proud to get to here, and before we finish, let's open the boxes. This is one of the highlights, right? So let's come over here to the shop. Not this one. It should be over here, right? So this is the reward for clearing rows. Let's grab this one. Let's grab this one. The next one is not free yet. I haven't got to 48 yet. So because I want to make the video out for you guys quickly. Once I get to 48, I might make another guide for you guys, or I might wait for next time for the next zone for level 60 to make a guide together for more tips in clearing Wormhole as free to play. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel and for more content related to Tower of Fantasy. I'll be looking into more free-to-play content, and I've tried to look into minimal spending or no spending method to clear the game and also achieve the highest amount of free currencies and also free-to-play, characters and also weapons in the game.